we come to, as a result of it, we now come to the very final leg of this symposium, which is the valedictory address by Professor Penna Madhusudan ji. Thank you, sir. You have been with us since the very morning. So thank you for being with us for the whole symposium. It has been very great inspiration to see you whole day attending every session in a very diligent manner. Thank you very much for the support. So Penna ji will be his valedictory address is on the topic Appayya Dikshita, the philosopher and commentator par excellence. And before we proceed, just a brief introduction to Professor Madhusudan. He is the professor of Sanskrit and dean at Kavikulaguru Kalidas Sanskrit University, Ramtek, Maharashtra. He has been awarded with Sahitya Academy Award for Mahakavya and Gulab Rao Maharaj. He has 45 books to his credit and has recently translated the Gyaneshwari of Sant Dhyaneshwar into 9,000 Samskrita verses. Professor Penna has about 17 awards and honors. He was honored with honorary D.Lit by National Sanskrit University, Tirupati, for his unique contribution in Indian philosophy. The Tirumala Peetham, established by Bhagavad Ramanujacharya, has also conferred Shastra Ratnakara on him. He has received many other awards, 17 of them, as I mentioned. His primary areas of interest are yoga, Advaita and Nyaya, but I would also add Mimamsa to it. He brought out multiple volumes of work on Mimamsa as well. So with this very brief introduction, which does not do him justice, I would request him to deliver his valedictory address, a concluding address for the whole day celebration of Appayya Dikshitar's work.
Thank you so much, sir. Yeah.
Please go ahead, sir. Yeah.
Just a minute, sir. Is this okay, sir?
Yes, this is better. Yeah.
My humble salutations to all the great seekers of knowledge here. And at the outset, I would like to congratulate the organizers and especially Harikaran Vadlamani ji and our great scholar Nagaraju sir and Iyer sir. So my salutations to you first, because right from the morning you have been aptly listening to all these lectures, and Nagaraju sir was summarizing the essence of all, with all diligence, that not a single point was missing. So this is really great feast that truly we had a good beginning with Dravida Guruji, the living philosopher, the only authority on Mimamsa, Nyaya, Vedanta and all the Shastras. And we had listened to his disciples also. So it was followed by Maheshwaranji, then Jammalamadka brothers, then Ganeshwara Bhatta, and especially the wonderful lecture on Vyakarana aspect by Bilvesh Sharmaji. So all that was really wonderful that I could not miss it. And now we come to the last part of the session, that is valedictory. See, basically, I'm not here to conclude anything, but some of the points I would like to share with the listeners here. That Appayya Dikshitar himself was a great scholar, commentator, mystic, yogi, and an authority on many Shastras like Mimamsa, Vedanta, Nyaya, Alankara Shastra, Vishishta Shivadvaita. So all these at one place. This is really astonishing. And when we look into his life, we find several similarly astonishing facts that we naturally develop a kind of adoration for him. Such a great scholar walked on this earth and inspired several lakhs of people, crores of people on this earth, that many people had taken to the study of Advaita Vedanta. And as Dravida Shastri Guruji was explaining in his speech, that Grantha Bodha Bodho Vidvat Vibhajaka Upadhi. So ultimately, understanding his works on one category and not understanding his works in the other category. And there are only two categories, ignorance and the learned. And I really attest with all humility that it is very true that many of his works reflect the grandeur of Sanskrit Shastra tradition. And several secrets of the Vedanta, Mimamsa are explored, are really elucidated in his works. And only for the benefit of the learners here, I would like to throw some light on his biography. We all know that Appayya Dikshitendra was born in Tamil Nadu. His father, Rangarajudhwari, though he is popular as Appayya Dikshita, his birth name was Vinayaka Subramanya, and later he became Appayya, because in the south, especially in the Tamil Nadu area, we find Achan, Appan, Ayyan. So these are actually the words of affection, love, because his younger brother was also Acchan Dikshitar. He is Appayya Dikshita, and his younger brother Acchan Dikshitar. And this Vinayaka Subramanyam became Appayya Dikshita later, and he studied many Shastras under his Guru Rama Kavi. And his father was also a very great scholar, because the entire family belonged to a great tradition. That his father, great grandfather, he was also Achan Dikshitar, who married a Vaishnavite lady. It is said, at the age of 32 or so, he married a Vaishnavite lady, and that continued in the family. And this Appayya Dikshitar was born in North Arcot. See, Sadashivendra Brahmendra Saraswati, Sadashiva Brahmendra Saraswati was also associated with this district in the Kaveri River. It was perhaps in the year 1550 or so he was born. That was Krishna Paksha of the Kanya in the South tradition, and Bharadwaja Gotra. And very typically, somewhere I have read that he was a Samoyedi, and throughout his life he had that regret, great regret, the tinge of regret that he did not belong to the Krishna Yajurveda. And he used to chant the Namakam Chamakam every day, Rudradhyaya, and he loved it. And he prayed actually that he wanted to take birth, at least in his next birth, as a Yajurvedi, and also in Andhra Pradesh, because during his period, the Andhra Pradesh was having several Pahitagni, Abhihotris, several Somayaji. So a great tradition was thriving in the south area, especially in Andhra Pradesh. And he was deeply impressed with the devotion and learning that the Andhra Pradesh had during his time. And that's why he somewhere expressed his regret that he was born in another family, but he preferred the Krishna Yajurveda, he said. And see, there were so many biographies, like Sri Appayya Dikshitendra Vijaya, written by one Shivananda Yogi. Shivananda Yogi had given many details about the life of Sri Appayya Dikshitendra, and in one of the shlokas he refers to some previous 4 biographies of Appayya Dikshita, which are now lost, because we don't have even a single biography of Appayya Dikshitendra. But Shivananda Yogi refers to some earlier biographies of Appayya Dikshita. And K.V. Subramanya Shastri, a great scholar, published a biography in Sanskrit, Sri Appayya Dikshitendra Vijaya. Same title, but later he published that. And Sri Dikshitendra Vamshabharana was another biography written in Sanskrit by one Sri Mannargudi Raju Shastri. And this actually bears significance that this Shastrigal had combined, actually gleaned information from various sources, not only from books, but also from tradition, oral tradition, popular during this time. So, this is a full biography. While K.V. Subramanya Shastri, he also had written about that. But compared to this Dikshitendra Vamshabharana, so this is a full biography, and here we find Vruddhaha evam ahuhu. That means the elders say so. So it shows that he had gone to the places where Appayya Dikshitendra was associated with, and he had collected valuable information from various sources, and he had incorporated that in his Appayya Dikshitendra Vamshabharana. So this contains the valuable information about the birth sketches of Appayya Dikshitendra that has come down from generation to generation. There is another Sri C.P. Ramaswamy Iyengar. He had also written a biographical work on this Appayya Dikshitendra. And it is said that this Ramaswamy Iyer was himself a descendant of Appayya Dikshita, and that's why, though that work is stated to remain in incomplete state, Notation and others also have stated that this work remained incomplete. History of my times. So this Ramaswamy Iyer, he has written that my ancestor Appayya Dikshitendra was a great scholar who can be compared with Leonardo da Vinci. Because, see, in history we know that Leonardo da Vinci mastered many arts and sciences like our Maheshwaran sir. So, really multi-talented, great scholar. So that Leonardo da Vinci, like Appayya Dikshitendra, and he mastered many Shastras at a very early age, Appayya Dikshitendra, and he was adored by many as a great authority, because in Sahitya Shastra, Alankara Shastra, we have Kuvalayananda, Chitra Mimamsa, and in Mimamsa Shastra, Vidirasan and other, we have in Vedanta, Siddhanta Lesha Sangraha, Nyaya Rakshamani, and in Visishta Shaivadvaita also we have several works. So this actually shows very clearly how versatile was his talent, and how that unflinching fervor he had to churn the ocean of all the Shastra and bring out the essence for the benefit of the later generations. So this is really great. And though he was a Smarta, he was an Advaiti by birth, it is clear from all the speeches that we had listened right from morning, that he never developed any hatred towards the other systems, because he had studied Visishtadvaita, Shivadvaita. He had studied the other systems also with all fervor and profundity. So we know Vedanta Deshika. He was a great fan of Vedanta Deshika, that he had commented on one of the works of Vedanta Deshika, Paduka Sahasra, and Yadavabhyudaya also. So, with all enthusiasm, he had written such works, and we all know that his Shivarka Manidipika is great authority on Shivadvaita. And very typically, all these scholars belong into other traditions or systems also. They study Appayya Dikshitendra's texts or commentaries to get a clear idea about their own system. That is the greatness of Appayya Dikshita. So we can glean from this information that Appayya Dikshita had studied with all certainty. Then he had assimilated the essence. Then for the sake of the next generations, he had presented all his understanding in the form of several books, which really reflect his multifaceted talent. And on the other side, we have a great information that he, as a person, was a person of simplicity. Nowadays, we find scholars running after money, fame, everything. But Appayya Dikshitendra, nowadays we have, of course, revered Manishastri, Manidravida Shastrigal. So such great scholars are still there who are known for their simplicity. That when Appayya Dikshitendra was presented several gold and other items by the local patrons and kings, so he used to spend all that money, all that wealth on religious and educational purpose only. So around 500 students he used to teach, and that's why the local Venkatapati also had a special school built for him in which Appayya Dikshitendra used to teach the Shivaraka Dīkṣita and other texts to almost 500 disciples every day. And actually, when he was in his matha, that Bhattoji Dikshita, the famous writer of Vyakarana Siddhanta Kauri, met him and he was taken aback. He was so impressed by the simplicity of Appayya Dikshita that Bhattoji Dikshita said, "See, this man with a poor look, is the great Appayya Dikshitendra, who is actually Advaita Matasthapanacharya, Srikanta Matasthapanacharya, and Mimamsaka Murdhanya, that Bhattadipika, Maheshwaran sir was quoting, in Bhattadipika, he is referred to as Mimamsaka Murdhanya." So Bhattoji Dikshita was taken aback and said, this man, can he be the epitome of Indian wisdom? But after some conversation with Appayya Dikshitendra, he was so convinced that he is really a scholar par excellence. So that was his scholarship. And coming to his commentaries, we generally find that two things are there in a commentator, in a philosopher. What a commentator does and what he is expected to do. That means two things are there. Many people write commentaries on many works, but what is expected and what is he doing? Whether he is fulfilling the objective of his duty. Because Namulam Likhyate Kinchit, Nanapekshitam Uchyate. Namulam Likhyate Kinchit. This is, of course, seen in many commentaries that many learned commentators, they stick to the original text and they take the same order sometimes or the idea sometimes, and they actually add their own understanding to that. But Nanapekshita Uchyate is also a different adjective, that Nanapekshita Uchyate. So the commentator should be very careful that whatever is not required should not be presented to the audience, while readers. Because the readers are unknown to the system sometimes. Sometimes they may be learned scholars. Out of curiosity also they study the commentaries. But when the novice come into the tradition and tries to study the text, if the text presents anapekshita, then the beginners get really confused. So one of the important feature of a good commentary is nanapekshita muchyate. Namulam likhyate, of course, that is followed by this. And in this particular aspect, we find that great commentators like the ancient commentators, many commentators, Bhashyakara, Vyakyakara, Vakyakara, Vyakhyanakara, Vrittikara, or Tikakara, all these had really focused on bringing out the essence of not only the text, but also of the system, the Shastra. So therefore, this particular feature of commentary was properly observed, noted, and followed by Sri Appayya Dikshitendra in all his works, that we find in his commentaries all that valuable information which we can get after reading several works, sometimes dozens of works. For example, the Nyaya Rakshamani, single work, but this work presents all that information which we may find in dozens of other Vedanta texts. So our effort is actually saved. Similarly, the Siddhanta Lesha Sangraha, very popular work. Similarly, his other works in other systems also. So thus, especially in an age when a need was felt that a rare scholar, true scholar was required, and a scholar with comprehensive vision and imagination. So at that particular period, Appayya Dikshitendra was born with all these necessary qualities of a practical philosopher, of a true scholar, true logician, and a poet himself, and a true devotee. We can find all these characteristics spread in all his works, and a very humble person. And he was ready to accept his own mistakes. For example, his statement somewhere that I am born in Samaveda family, but I love the Yajurveda, and especially I would like to take birth in Andhra region. One. Second, he said, I have wasted my time in unnecessary arguments, controversies, but in this age, I would like to devote myself to the spread of Advaita wisdom. So such clarity, such humbleness, such egalitarian attitude that we find in him. And perhaps it is Sri Appayya Dikshitendra who has actually prepared a graphical arrangement of the Dvaita, Visishtadvaita and Advaita. Because he describes Dvaita as the lowest step, Visishtadvaita as the middle step, and the Advaita, that is the final step. So people follow all the three, and common readers are totally confounded with all this and they get confused. Now, Appayya Dikshitendra, out of his own experience, spiritual experience, philosophical understanding of all the tradition, he presents very clearly that Dvaita is the lowest step. Okay, you get through that. Now you are eligible for the Visishtadvaita, where Sattatraya is there. Then Bheda Panchaka, then you get to Sattatraya. Then you are eligible for the Advaita. And very typically, many of the real scholars of Visishtadvaita and Dvaita do accept this. They say, in this birth, we are not truly eligible for the final Nirguna Dvaita of Shankaracharya. Therefore, we prepare ourselves, because that is the highest state, very difficult to achieve. So, many of them satisfy themselves with heavy arguments, very, very hostile arguments, refuting others and trying to establish one. And as Sri Harsha says in Khandakadya, ultimately, when there is one Brahma, how can there be any hostility? How can there be any difference? But still, at Vyavaharika level, all this takes place. So, it is Appayya Dikshitendra ultimately who has given this, that Dvaita, Visishtadvaita and Advaita. And coming to his Srikanta Bhashya and the Brahma Sutra, Nyaya Rakshamani also, as Divyesh Sharma was very, very clearly and in a very scholastic manner, he was explaining the nuances of the Appayya Dikshitendra's works, and especially he had thrown light on the Vaidika Swara and how Appayya Dikshitendra was able to get to that, because he is Aparashankara. it is not a great surprise that Appayya Dikshitendra had presented all this. These are the nuances of the Shastra. And how subtle was that? Because during that particular period, scholars put themselves to the rigorous study of the Shastra. They used to teach the Shastra. They had no other avocation, only Shastra. Shastra was their life. That's why we find in them the authenticity of that particular Shastra. And nowadays in many universities, unfortunately, it is missing. But with the efforts of this INDICA Academy and all the great people associated with that, that authentic scholarship will again come up, and that will show to the world the required light. So in his Nyaya Rakshamani I was going through, because I had studied and I had explained the Siddhanta Lesha Sangraha, all the various doctrines of Siddhanta Lesha Sangraha. Monumental, very, very useful work for all the Advaita students. Everybody knows that. In Nyaya Rakshamani also we have wonderful information, and the exposition that Appayya Dikshitendra makes is really quite impressive. That unless you go through the text, you won't know that the sutra contained this particular valuable information. For example, the Sutrakara has given the sutra. That sutra is known for its brevity, Alpaksharam Asandigdha. But unfortunately, Alpakshara is maintained, Asandigdha Sutrakara has maintained. But all the Bhashyakaras, they find some Sandeha there. Of course, to each system, to each Bhashyakara, his own final theory is whatever he believed. But other scholars have refuted his understanding. We know that. So when some sutras are there, which actually are not very clear, to me at least, many scholars say, it is your problem. Nasthanora aparadha yad andho na pashyati. Antaha enam na pashyati. So it is not the fault of the pole or post somewhere where the blind person hits it. It is his fault, not the fault of the post. Similarly, if there is some ambiguity, it is your problem. Thus some scholars told me, but Appayya Dikshitendra in one of his works says very clearly that in Brahma Sutras, if there is ambiguity, it is not uncommon, he says. That's why all the bhashyas have come into light. So this is a very open-mindedness, we can say, that Appayya Dikshitendra understands the nature of the sutra, and therefore he follows, he understands in what manner the commentary should be presented, so that a common reader will not be totally baffled. So he presents that. And again, I would like to tell you that Tulsi Joshi sir was throwing light on this particular Attacharachara Grahanat. So Attacharachara Grahanat, the Atradhikarana. So he was referring to the particular epithet, adjective, Atta Yasya Brahmachakshatrancha Uve Bhavati Odanam. So this two Bhavati Odanam, and Atta, because he is indicated there as Atta, the devourer of everything. But that everything word is missing there. Charachara Prapanchasya, etc. is not there. And Bhashyakara had thrown light, he explained very lucidly all that is required there. But still, few important points are not made explicit there. And Appayya Dikshitendra has taken the task upon himself, and he makes clear the hinted points in the Shankara Bhashya. So that is the greatness. Similarly, in Guham Pravishtav Atmanavhita Darshanat, Visheshanatcha, and not only here, Nanumanam Atachabdat, there is a sutra in the first adhyaya itself, Nanumanam Atachabdat, a very typical point he brings out, Na Anumanam Atachabdat. So he says, Na Anumanam or Anumanam. He doesn't give any scope. if he doesn't touch on this particular point, then people will generally take that as na anumanam atachabda. Anumanam sometimes taken in the sense of smriti, sometimes in the sense of prakriti also. That's why their rupopani nanumanam atacha rachananupapatescha nanumanam payo bhuvachet tatrapi pravrittescha. So in that particular second adhyaya pada also, we have this anuman shabda in the sense of prakriti. But pratyakshanumana in that particular context, anumana means smriti, pratyaksha means shruti. So that way it has been explained traditionally. Now, the small point that is not very explicit in the Bhashya is pointed out by Appayya Dikshitendra when he says, in what sense should be taken anumanam or anumanam? Because shaishika, that tadhita pratyaya is also possible. Then he continues with the discussion. Similarly, atat shabdat, here also he throws light on that particular panchami. Atat shabdat, how it is formed, how can it be taken? See, this is pure Shastra. That's why in Bhattadipika, the Granthakara praises in high terms Appayya Dikshitendra that he is real master. And we all look at him like a very tall figure, like Meru Parvata in Vedanta Darshana and all the darshanas, that he really assimilated the essence of Vedanta, not only the textual knowledge, but the essence of Vedanta in his life. So, this is Appayya Dikshita's, on one side, the Vyakarana, second, the Vedic tradition. He mastered that also. So, Vyakarana, Vaidika Jnana, then Vedanta Jnana with Upanishadic support, then Mimamsa Shastra. Because when he wrote a stotra, the stotra was full of all Mimamsa Nyaya, that another scholar had written a commentary on that, explaining the Mimamsa Nyaya in a stotra, perhaps the first of its kind, that a stotra was written with all the Mimamsa Nyaya. So, see, Srikanta Bhashya also, Srikanta himself was a great Shaiva, and he actually preferred the Sagunopasana, and Appayya Dikshitendra towards his life maintained that Sagunopasana is a must. One cannot do away with that. So this is actually the great clarity that he had in his life, that though Nirguna is the highest, the Sagunopasana should not be totally denied or kept aside, discarded, lest the Nirguna becomes very difficult to really comprehend and live with. So therefore, Sagunopasana is a step towards Nirguna. That's why in the Bhagavadpada also we find that avyaktam hi mahad dukkham deha varpidavapyate avyakta hi gatihi, etc. So in Ananda Lahari Chandrika, we find his dialectical skill. Ananda Lahari Chandrika. Of course, in the Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, Advaita, Shivadvaita text also he had explained a single paricheda for a particular darshana. So in this Ananda Lahari Chandrika, all divergent schools of thoughts are explained and the differences are reconciled with. And finally, it takes us to the Advaita of Shankaracharya. So that is also a great contribution, that he's, of course, in the Nyaya Rakshamani and Siddhanta Sangraha we find his subtle understanding of the theory. Come to the very first topic of Shastra Siddhanta Sangraha, whether Atma Vare Drashtavya Shrotavyo Mantavyo Nidhyasitavyaha, a single sentence. But we find in that Drashtavyaha is Vidhi. Is it Vidhi? If it is taken as Vidhi, then what kind of Vidhi? Because in Mimamsa Shastra we have different types of Vidhi. like Apurva Vidhi, Niyama Vidhi, Parisankhya Vidhi, whether any Vidhi type can be taken in the context of this Drashtavya, Darshana Vidhi, Atma Darshana Vidhi, then presenting all these views and expounding all of them, Appayya Dikshita quotes a sentence from Shankara Bhashya and says, Vidhi Chayani Vakyani Drishyante. Is actually Vidhi Chaya, not exactly Vidhi. Therefore, there cannot be any Vidhi at all. So, thus, he was a peacemaker. Because when he had taken all the views, he presents such a view that can be acceptable to all because it is more authoritative. More strength is on its side. So he was a peacemaker. He therefore pleaded for harmony, tolerance, mutual goodwill, and understanding. And especially at a time when people were really quarreling. Because 16th century, of course, very peaceful, because Malik Kafar, that attack, etc., was succeeded, and there was peace everywhere. But still, when in the name of religion, in the name of philosophical sects, people were quarreling, a person of such stature like Appayya Dikshita was required, and he had reconciled with this Vishnu, Shiva, as all the great scholars were explaining right from the morning. So he was trying to show that there is basically no difference between Vishnu and Shiva. Only one Brahma is there. You refer to a particular aspect of the same divine consciousness, cosmic consciousness, with a particular adjective, like one aspect, Vishnu, the Vyapakatva. But it itself is Ananda, Anandamayo Dhyasa, Vikara Shabdat Neti Chenna Prachudya, Tadhetu Vyapadeshacha, Mantra Varidikame Vichidhyate. So we had just listened to all this Anandamaya Adhikarana and Anandamaya Paramatma. Why Tadhetu Vyapadeshacha? Of course, some people explain this, that Tadhetu means he is the Hetu of Anandamaya, but some people say Tasya Anandasya Matra Upajivanti. Therefore, it is the nature of Brahma that all the creatures rest in. So it is the Ananda. And who gives that Ananda to all the beings? It is Brahma only. In deep sleep, when people experience that bliss or they become one with the Sata Sampadyate, Sata Sampanno Bhavati, Somapito Bhavati Tada Swapiti Tyachakshate. So then they get united with that, they become one with that, and it is Swapa, Sat Sampatti, Sampratipatti, all these are there. So that Vishnu and Shiva are actually some words referring to that which is beyond all words. That's why Appayya Dikshita had preferred a path of harmony, and he restored Shaivism, especially when there was particular hostility. And he had written this Shivarka Manidipika that explains Shivadvaita philosophy of Srikanta Acharya. And he was in a period, especially if you compare with the Europe, we find Shakespeare. Shakespeare in England, he was actually writing his plays. And here, Appayya Dikshita, far above, he was working on the various philosophies, various systems, various cults, and the great scholarship he had exhibited in his life was because he had mastered all the Chaturdasha Vidya at a very early age and continued with that. This is a great contribution. And the real mission of his life was the reconciliation of all creeds, cults, and various philosophies we have just seen. And we know that Sri Krishna Devaraya was there. Sri Krishna Devaraya's Guru, Tatacharya, was against all the Shaivites, and he never wanted any Shaivite in the court of Sri Krishna Devaraya. But after Tatacharya, when his grandson was the Asthana Guru, Appayya Dikshitar was invited, and Appayya Dikshitar was honored. So this is really great incident in the Vijayanagara Empire, that Appayya Dikshitar was really offered that great respect which he deserved. And of course, in one of his works like Nigraha Shataka, Appayya Dikshitar refers to one particular scene of his times, that Vaishnavites had taken a resolute, a very strong vow to stamp out Shaivism. That was very strong in the South India. And in Prapannamrita, when Anantacharya wrote that particular book, and that is actually Prapannamrita records the history of Vaishnava tradition in this area. So, actually, lives of many Acharyas, and it refers to Sri Appayya Dikshitar. And it says that one great scholar, Appayya Dikshitar, lives at Chidambaram, and he is very famous and unassailable by controversialists. So they had made a reference, a very conspicuous reference to the fame of Appayya Dikshitar. And he was a sectarian, a philosophical, and proceeds to state that to refute his great work on Shivadvaita and Advaita. See, the Prapannamrita also refers to that and says he's a great scholar and he's unassailable. And we understand that when Tatacharya was alive, he wrote a book, and Panchamata Bhanjana was a great work. And Mahacharya, he also wrote a book. And in Dvaita, Vijayendra also wrote a book. And all these works were centered on a same topic, single topic of refuting Appayya Dikshita. That means Dvaita, Visishtadvaita, and all the other, they were actually honing their skills to counter Appayya Dikshitar only. Such was his fame during his time that he was honored by almost 4 kings. He was well invited to their courts. He was honored. Suvarna Abhisheka was also done, and some inscription is there in which Appayya Dikshitar's great fame is recorded. And this Tatacharya, that Panchamata Bhanjana Tatacharya, he lived for about 75 years. But we can understand that when Venkatapati in the life of Sri Krishna Devaraya was celebrating his ceremony of coronation, that is 1585, his adopted son Lakshmikanta Tatacharya, only 14-year-old, was there. And the elder Tatacharya was the Rajaguru. And at the time, Appayya Dikshitar was invited. This was also recorded. And people say that Jagannatha Pandita was a contemporary of Appayya Dikshita. And Jagannatha Pandita had developed a kind of aversion for the scholar Appayya Dikshitar, because Appayya Dikshitar did not like Jagannatha marrying a Yavana Kanya, Lavangi, all that. But now scholars have come to the conclusion that Jagannatha Pandita lived almost 100 years after Appayya Dikshitar. Therefore, most of these stories are only stories. So, we understand that only Bhattoji Dikshita was his contemporary, and several such biographical sketches are found in the Adayapalam inscription, which is dated 1582 AD. So we find from that and from many other sources also that Appayya Dikshitar was really a legendary philosopher, a commentator who had influenced and impressed many scholars. And throughout India, people used to study him, people used to talk about him. Even in Kashi, he was really honored like any other Sarvatantra Swatantra. And when Chinna Bomba, a ruler, when he made endowments for the maintenance of his ashrama with almost 500 disciples, so the Chinna Bomba made a donation, and he made the donation to the Matha of monastery of Appayya Dikshita, though Appayya Dikshitar was himself a householder, a grihastha, like Janaka and others, because we find three streams in Vedanta. One is pure grihastha, but devoted to Vedanta. Second, the scholars. Third, the living Advaitins like Shuka Brahma, Sadashvendra Saraswati, Ramana Maharshi. So we find Appayya Dikshitar belonging to the first category, and he was a grihastha, but he lived a very saintly life that we find in his work, that he demonstrated that not only the simplicity, but the height of all mystic spiritual power. Many stories are ascribed. See, we find that one day when somebody went to his ashram, that local king, Appayya Dikshitar was practicing meditation. Actually, he was deeply immersed in that. But as he knew that the local ruler had come to see him, then it is said that he was actually suffering from fever, but he immediately transferred that to the asana, the Mrugacharma asana. He transferred that to the Charmasana, and he had discussed with him whatever the ruler wanted. Then he came back. So this particular story tells us what kind of great power he had as a Siddha Yogi. Another was narrated by Brahmashri Patururi Ramanjane Swami, Sita Ramanjane Swami, father of our Nagaraju sir. When I was young, Sita Ramanjane Swami Guruji, so he used to tell me so many stories about Sadashvendra Saraswati, Appayya Dikshitar, and many other saints. And actually, Paturi Sita Ramanjane Swami Guruji, he had instilled this Vedanta sense in me. And he told me another incident, that when Appayya Dikshitar was having stomachache and the text was to be explained, he had transferred that to one of the sticks there, that means the staff there. He used to hold it, and he completed his job, and then he got it back. Then he felt the pain. So such stories are there. Not only that, he was a great Siddha Yogi, that at the same time he was seen by different people at different places, like Narayan Tirtha. At the time of his disappearance, Narayan Tirtha was also seen by several devotees at his Samadhi place near Tamil Nadu and in Kashi also, because there is one Samadhi place in Kashi. So such a great Siddha Yogi was Appayya Dikshitar. All this apart, that means all his erudition as a great scholar, all his commentator skill, all his great understanding of the text, okay, all this apart, his yogic powers, they're really marvelous, unbelievable. And only in the ancient yoga text we find some reference to such great powers. And there are so many such stories in which we find that Appayya Dikshitar had attracted the attention of the local people. And coming to his major contribution to the development of Vedanta philosophy, whether it is Shivadvaita or Kevaladvaita, we find a very striking feature missing many of the bhashyas. Maybe in the Dvaita bhashya it is there, but Appayya Dikshitar relied to a large extent on the Puranic lore for the exposition, because he wanted to support the conclusions leading to the harmony of the sects. But unfortunately, the sutra, the available text does not support. Therefore, he had to depend more on the Purana lore. This is great synthesis that Appayya Dikshitendra had made. On similar lines, one of the greatest saints of modern India, Sant Shri Gulab Rao Maharaj in Vidarbha, who left this material world in the year 1915, beginning of 20th century, he had also conceived an idea of writing Purana Mimamsa, like Brahma Mimamsa. And he had prepared a blueprint of that, an idea, a kind of planning. So he had prepared that how such sentences are to be taken, how they are to be reconciled with, how they should be arranged, etc. Exactly this reflects the planning that Badarayana Maharshi had before him. See, the Spashta Brahmalinga Vakya, Spashta Brahmalinga Vakya, all these are taken from the Upanishads and they were given a particular order, and that had led to a great tradition of Vedanta. Similarly, this Gulab Rao Maharaj also had planned a Mimamsa, Purana Mimamsa, but very unfortunately, that work remained in that fetal stage only. It could not develop because he left this abode at the age of 34. And in that short span only, he had written about 134 works in almost 4 languages on about 8 subjects like music, Ayurveda, Sankhya, Yoga, Advaita, Bhakti, Natha Sampradaya. So, such a great versatility we find in modern scholars, and it is beyond doubt that such scholars are really influenced, impressed by these stalwarts like Appayya Dikshitendra. So, he had linked the Puranic teachings with the Upanishadic teachings. Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Samupa Brahmayet Vibhetya Alpashutad Veda Mamayam Praharishyati. Bhagavad Ramanujacharya also quotes this in the Sri Bhashyam, beginning only, that Itihasa Puranabhyam Vedam Samupa Brahmayet. What is this Samupa Brahmana? How can it be achieved? This Upabrahmana, some Upabrahmana. Brahmashri Paturi Sitaramanjana sir explained to me when I was really very, very ignorant. Now also I am ignorant, but God has given me some jihva. So, Nidarshayan Swam Prakritim Kapinam. So I indulge myself in all these, but I know my ignorance. So when Brahmashri Paturi Swami asked me one sentence from Bhashya, I could not explain, I could not understand it properly. Then he said, what you study in the universities, this is the tradition, you should get it. This is the vision, this is the way you should approach the great traditional texts. And with all affection and love, he had opened the great treasury, opened it, that I could see Vararuchi, Halayudha, Shankaracharya, Kumarala Bhatta, all these great scholars he had opened. And his Shivananda Lahari, one should read it, especially the introduction to Shivananda Lahari, one should read. Many mystic things he has brought out light. So he asked about one Upasarga, Sam. I told him, I can't understand. He said, Samityeki Bhave. This is from Nirukta. Why don't you recollect? This is the way of connecting, synthesizing, and making a coherent understanding so that you can really touch on the heart of the ancient masters. So this is the prasada that I got from Paturi family, that really great tapasvi, great yogi, great avaduta. I am really blessed. So this Purana teachings and the Upanishadic teaching, they need to be connected. And that great work was done by Appayya Dikshitendra long back. So But while doing all this, he never resorted to any strained arguments, subtleties of arguments, making the idea more difficult to assimilate, totally intangible sometimes. Because somebody told me that philosophy is talking about something which is known to everybody in a language which is not known to anybody. So it is the matter of language. The reality itself is not difficult to understand, but the language of philosophers is very difficult to understand. But luckily we have great scholars like Madhusudan Shastriji, Paturiji. So these great scholars have simplified, elucidated philosophy, and they have brought it down to common man's life, that even a common person can understand and enjoy the essence of philosophy. Otherwise, if you keep philosophy always above, out of the reach of all persons, because of its subtlety and because of its hardness, sternness, so the purpose of philosophy cannot be served, and ultimately the purpose of philosophy is to give perfection to human life. And I have told you that Appayya Dikshitar studied Vishishtadvaita, studied Shivadvaita, studied Kevaladvaita, studied Mimamsa, but we all should mark one particular feature, that in whatever subject he entered, he could get the heart of it. That is the greatness of Appayya Dikshitar, as if it is his own. So with all this fervor, he had presented that particular philosophy. That's why when he studied Vishishtadvaita, he was so influenced. He wrote a commentary on Yadavabhyudaya and Paduka Sahasra. I told you, Paduka Sahasra and Varadarajastav. So he had written a hymn on this Varadaraja. And in Kuvalayananda, he invokes the blessings of Mukunda. So he is not against that Vaishnava, because almost all the Smartas are Vaishnava, no problem. And Harihara Stuti he wrote, in which the very special feature of South Indian Vedanta system, we find Harihara Abheda, that which is reflected in the works of Kaundabat Bhushanasara, Sri Lakshmi Ramanam Navami Gauri Ramana Rupinam Spotarupam Yatas Sarvam Jagadeta Vivartate Sri Lakshmi Ramanam Navami Gauri Ramana Rupinam. So this is actually the Harihara Abheda, and he had written that. And in Ratnatraya Pariksha, the previous scholar was throwing light on that. He conceded Brahmatva to Vishnu in another work, Shivadvaita. He gave that supremacy to Shiva, and here Vishnu, because it is only one, the name is different, the aspect is different. So here this Ishvara and Ambika, the Shiva Gauri Abheda, Vishnu Gauri Abheda also is a very particular feature that he has achieved. And while doing this, he had in his mind that in all the other systems like Dvaita Vishishtadvaita, Shiva is placed in the Jiva Koti, and like this Kavyakanta Ganapati Muni, who had given the supreme state to Indra, Appayya Dikshitar gave this supreme state to Shiva. And Harihara Abhedastava, he has very clearly presented how these are not two, only one. So this is the great contribution. Vishnu, Gauri, synthesis, all this is the great contribution. And he has presented all together like the Advaita in Nayamanjari and Srikanta Shivadvaita in Nayamanimala and Ramanuja's Vishishtadvaita in Nyaya Mayuk Malika and Nyaya Muktavali Madhva. And somebody told me that these different scholars, like scholars studying only Dvaita, scholars studying only Visishtadvaita or Srikanta, they take only that particular chapter and study that particular part. So thus he had presented throughout his life the catholicity of outlook, thoroughness of intellect, method, and his impartiality and absence of prejudice. That's very important. Not one-sided understanding, and unerring sense of values also. That also marks his personality. And above all, his earnest search for truth, the ultimate truth. So actually many people make effort to get to the reality, and throughout life they will be making effort only. Always either alabdha bhumikatva or anavasthitatva. Between these two impediments only they lived their life. But Appayya Dikshitendra and many other such great saints, they reach it, they remain there, and they show path to other jnana seekers or moksha seekers also. So all these are evident in his writings, and the Vaishnavites also have adopted his text when they study. So this is the great contribution that his coming to his work on Vedanta, that is Parimala. This is included in the Panchagranthi of Vedanta, starting with the Sutra, then Bhashya, then Bhamati, then Kalpataru, then Parimala. So we find the five. This is the Panchagranthi tradition, and Appayya Dikshitendra, because of his versatile, fathomless erudition, earned a place along with these, that without a study, complete understanding of his work, study of this Advaita Vedanta cannot be complete. And this is in Vedanta. And we had seen that Vidhi Rasayana, through that he had earned such place in Mimamsa also, that Khandadeva in his work, Kaustubha, he has mentioned, he made a remark to this Appayya Dikshitendra's work, and he said he's a versatile scholar, Mimamsa Murdhanya. So all this shows that Appayya Dikshitendra was not only a versatile scholar, a living philosopher, a great yogi, and a Shiva Avatara himself. That Bhattoji Dikshita himself calls him a Shiva Avatara. And Bhattoji Dikshita was so impressed that he has given the very popular shloka that Manishastrigal had quoted. Many other scholars also have quoted in today's session, that understanding Appayya Dikshita's text is the parameter for your epithet as a scholar or not. That means you being a scholar or not depends on your understanding of his text. Some people say this is actually Bhattoji Dikshita's verse. Thus we find Appayya Dikshitendra's complete life, not keeping himself away from any system, any branch, any specialization. He had really enjoyed all the systems, starting from Vyakarana, because without Vyakarana, most of these cannot be understood. Then Sahitya Shastra were for his Vyutpatti, then Mimamsa Shastra for a clearer understanding of Vedanta, then Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, etc. Of course, very much required, because without that, one cannot really progress in the study of any philosophical system. But very typically, Appayya Dikshitendra does not completely adhere to the Navya Nyaya pattern or Navya Nyaya method of presentation of ideas. Avachedaka, Avachinna, Pratiyogi, Anuyogi, we don't find in the works of Appayya Dikshitendra. Even we find some stray references here and there, but still very much surprising that a scholar of that stature did not write any complete text on the work of Gangeshopadhyaya, that is Tattva Chintamani, very typical. And Appayya Dikshita had written Apita Kuchambastava. And it is stated that he was suffering from a fever, and to get rid of that, to come out of that state, he had written this Apita Kuchamba Stava and Aditya Stava Ratna. See, great mystic efficacy is attached with all the stotras, that whoever reads, chants these stotras can get rid of either physical ailments or mental ailments like Apita Kuchambastava, Varadarajastava, Aditya Stavaratna, Shiva Mahimna Kalika Stuti also is there. I have told you that this particular stotra contains so many Mimamsa Nyaya. Many of them are used here also. So this is a great contribution of this scholar, that he had incorporated all these to make them alive. So that is a great achievement. And coming to his the Vaidika aspect of his life, that he was an Advarindra, like Dharmaraj Advarindra, Appayya Dikshitendra, Dikshita. So when he was performing the Dikshitendra, that means when he was Chandramoulishwara Stuti, so he was actually performing a Vajapeya Yaga in Kanchipuram, and at the time when everybody was making a criticism that unnecessarily the Pashu Yaga was being done, etc., Appayya Dikshita had answered to them, and whatever was offered into the fire, that appeared on the Ishvara Murti. So that is great thing that was associated with the life of Appayya Dikshitendra in Kanchipuram. And all his life, all his works, they actually are very impressive. They actually open our eyes and take us into the nectar of Advaita and the traditional Shastra. So we are really fortunate that because of this INDICA, we are here, and we are here to churn the ocean of Appayya Dikshitendra's works, and each one of the scholars here present are really great scholars who had devoted their life to the study of Vedanta texts, Nyaya texts, Mimamsa texts, and we are really fortunate that such young scholars are still there amidst us, and the tradition will continue, and the great Siddhas like Appayya Dikshitendra will inspire us, will show us the path, and we will have really a blessed life on this planet. With these words, I conclude, and I apologize if I have taken much time. Thank you so much. Asmat Guru Bhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, sir. It was such a wonderful session, such an enlightening session. I mean, I think, the time passed. We could not even realize the time passed. I could have heard this session for another 1 hour. So many different facets of not only the works of Appayya Dikshitar, but also from his life, anecdotes about his Siddha Yoga, about his yogic powers, anecdotes about so many aspects of his life that we were never aware of. Thank you for collating all of them and so beautifully putting them out. It was a wonderful address, and I think it gave a very right conclusion to today's symposium by highlighting that we did not even touch up the, it's not even the tip of the iceberg that we covered in today's symposium. There is so much more to go, and I hope this symposium will act as an inspiration for many people to study Appayya Dikshitar in more detail. Thank you very
so
much. Nagaraj ji, any final remarks before we conclude?
I don't think, because Professor Penna has covered everything that is to be covered, so I don't think we
Thank you,
have
sir.
anything more to say. Every time I meet and hear Professor Penna, I get amazed. And I feel so fortunate that I was able to spend some time during his young days as his friend and colleague. And I, at
Guide,
that
sir.
time,
Guide and elder brother with all blessings. So
at
you
that
bless
time,
him.
I did not know, like in Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna says, Hey Sakha, iti.
Bhaktosinne sakha
I
cheti.
used to say Penna Madhusudanji as my younger brother at that time, but I did not know that such a Sri Krishna was there in him. That
Sir.
Vishwarupa. I did not know that Vishwarupa. Now I am able to see that Vishwarupa in him. Actually, the historical facts and the dates and all those things, true to a university scholar, all those details are brought by him. Because the summary is what is given to me as a responsibility, I would like to say that every talk today from the morning was so enriching. We were learning from almost every talk. Something new was being added. And I always get amazed at these Shastra scholars, how they add every time a new thing. From Manidravada Shastrigal to Maheshwaranji and all the scholars, they added very well. So I think it is befitting for us to actually go to a stotra, Margabandhu stotra, which is actually, it has become so popular. Now, people who know this Margabandhu Stotra on YouTube, it has become so popular. Some ringtones have been made and all that. They do not know that today such a long symposium from morning till evening is being conducted on the scholar who composed their ringtone. So Appayya Dikshita is such a ringtone popular scholar also. That is the beauty of that scholar. So with this, I think I should, like Nitinji, I am also amazed at the patience with which Professor Penna spent the whole day. He was the only panelist, the only single panelist who was sitting throughout the symposium, knowing that he has to come only at the valedictory. He could have come just in the evening at the time of valedictory only, but he was sitting all through. Despite being such an erudite scholar, he waited for such a long time throughout the symposium. And I was watching at the attendees. Now 8 attendees apart from the panelists have remained. There was, in the morning, there were wonderful scholars also. Advaita Vedanta scholars also were there among the attendees. But gradually the number dwindled down. But
We started with 45 in the morning.
we started with 45. And I was watching who was there. There were who and who of Advaita Vedanta scholarship in the among the audience. I am sure Professor Penna's talk in the valedictory now getting recorded, and when it gets uploaded, it will be watched by thousands and thousands of viewers. They will all get benefited from this wonderful erudite talk by him. It is definitely, it demands a lot of patience to sit through. So the 8 attendees who remained, including our own Vaijayanti Chakravarti ji, Krishna Chaitanya Kukuchetti, all these known people to us. So Shant Bharati ji is also there. Vivek Srivastava ji also is there. So I thank all the audience also. Thank you very much, particularly Professor Penna for his patient participation.
Sir, actually, sir, each moment spent in the session, it gives a lot of energy, sir, because as you said rightly, the topics you have given to the scholars and the scholars also presenting them really all this is very much necessary. So it is Swartha, not Parartha.
That is your
Total
humility.
Swartha.
That is your humility. You are so humble. But definitely, we are also happy that the whole day was spent very usefully.
Very successful.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Nagaraj. Thank you very much, Penna ji.
Sir.
Viewers, we come to the final, very, very last segment, which is vote of thanks. I would like to thank all the great Vidwans and all the teachers, including Penna Madhusudan ji and everybody, and Mani David Shastri ji and all other speakers of the symposium, who accepted our invitation immediately, right away, and spoke today on various aspects of Sri Appayya Dikshitar's works. Despite us getting delayed from the very morning, most speakers patiently waited for their turn and gave a wonderful presentation. So I thank all of them, and I especially thank Sri Nagaraj Paturi ji, who is always the go-to person for all our symposiums, especially for providing an English summary for the Samskrita talks, because most Advaita Academy symposiums have traditional scholars who will be presenting on Samskrita, and that is needed. So we make a point to include Samskrita talks. So Nagaraji is always been helpful on this front, and I also thank my colleagues who work in the back end, Koti Ramprasad and our design team and everybody else whose work, whose support has made this possible. And I finally thank Sri Harikaran Vadlamaniji for creating this platform through which we are able to do all this excellent work. Otherwise, I think it's very difficult to come across such programs such as this, celebrating the life of Appayya Dikshitar and many other programs like this. So I thank everybody, one and all. With this, we conclude this session. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.